The reading of all good books is like conversation with the finest men of past centuries. We do not describe the world we see. We see the world we can describe. The only thing that I know is that I know nothing. If you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things. An optimist may see a light where there is none. But why must the pessimist always run to blow it out? How can you be certain that your whole life is not a dream? The senses deceive from time to time, and it is prudent never to trust wholly those who have deceived us even once. We never understand a thing so well and make it our own as when we have discovered it for ourselves. Conquer yourself rather than the world. Doubt is the origin of wisdom. Nothing is more fairly distributed than common sense. No one thinks he needs more of it than he already has. Except our own thoughts, there is nothing absolutely in our power. Situations in life often permit no delay. And when we cannot determine the course which is certainly best, we must follow the one which is probably the best. It is not enough to have a good mind. The main thing is to use it well. To know what people really think. Pay attention to what they do, rather than what they say. It is possible that I am dreaming right now, and that all of my perceptions are false. Desire awakens only to things that are thought possible. Every man is indeed bound to do what he can to promote the good of others. And a man who is of no use to anyone is strictly worthless. The greatest minds are capable of the greatest vices, as well as of the greatest virtues. I desire to live in peace, and to continue the life I have begun under the motto, to live well, you must live unseen. I was convinced that our beliefs are based much more on custom and example than on any certain knowledge. And as it is the most generous souls who have most gratitude, it is those who have most pride and who are most base and infirm, who most allow themselves to be carried away by anger and hatred. To live without philosophizing is in truth the same as keeping the eyes closed, without attempting to open them. There is nothing more ancient than the truth. Divide each difficulty into as many parts as is feasible and necessary to resolve it. In order to improve the mind, we ought less to learn than to contemplate. Each problem that I solved became a rule, which served afterwards to solve other problems. Let whoever can do so deceive me. He will never bring it about that I am nothing, so long as I continue to think I am something. Reason is the only thing that makes us men and distinguishes us from the beasts. I would prefer to believe that it exists in its entirety in each of us. I think, therefore I am. Illusory joy is often worth more than genuine sorrow. When I turn my mind's eye upon myself, I understand that I am a thing which is incomplete, and dependent on another, and which aspires without limit, to ever greater and better things. Few look for truth. Many prowl about for a reputation of profundity, by arrogantly challenging whichever arguments are the best. Whenever anyone has offended me, I try to raise my soul so high, that the offense cannot reach it. It's the familiar love-hate syndrome of seduction. I don't really care what it is I say, I care only that you like it. The dreams we imagine when we are asleep should not in any way make us doubt the truth of the thoughts we have when we are awake. The first precept was never to accept a thing as true until I knew it as such, without a single doubt. There is nothing so far removed from us as to be beyond our reach, or so hidden that we cannot discover it. For the very fact that my knowledge is increasing little by little, is the most certain argument for its imperfection. We call infinite that thing whose limits we have not perceived. And so by that word we do not signify what we understand about a thing, but rather what we do not understand. My maxim was to try always to master myself, rather than fortune. And change my desires, rather than changing how things stand in the world. The thinking of the mind is twofold: understanding and willing. When it is not in our power to determine what is true, we ought to follow what is most probable. I took especially great pleasure in mathematics, because of the certainty and the evidence of its arguments. The very desire to seek the truth often causes people, who do not know how it should be sought correctly, to make judgments about things that they do not perceive. And in that way they make mistakes. In order to determine whether we can know anything with certainty, we first have to doubt everything we know. It is useful to know something of the manners of different nations, that we may be enabled to form a more correct judgment regarding our own, and be prevented from thinking that everything contrary to our customs is ridiculous and irrational. On the other hand, when too much time is occupied in traveling, we become strangers to our native country. And the over-curious in the customs of the past are generally ignorant of those of the present. It is just as valuable to be censured by friends, as it is splendid to be praised by enemies. We desire praise from those who do not know us, but from friends we want the truth. Those who move but very slowly may advance much farther, if they always follow the right way, than those who run and straggle from it. The will determines itself. It should not be described as blind, any more than vision should be described as deaf. So far, I have been a spectator in this theater which is the world. But I am now about to mount the stage, and I come forward masked. It is enough that I can understand one thing, clearly and distinctly, without another, in order to be certain that one thing is distinct from the other. Is there anything more intimate, or more internal, than pain? I found myself involved in so many doubts and errors, that I was convinced I had advanced no farther in all my attempts at learning, than the discovery at every turn of my own ignorance. Although my knowledge grows more and more, nevertheless I do not, for that reason, believe that it can ever be actually infinite, since it can never reach a point so high, that it will be unable to attain any greater increase. I did not imitate the skeptics, who doubt only for doubting's sake, and pretend to be always undecided. On the contrary, my whole intention was to arrive at a certainty, and to dig away the drift and the sand, until I reached the rock or the clay beneath. I had always a most earnest desire to know how to distinguish the true from the false, in order that I might be able clearly to discriminate the right path in life, and proceed in it with confidence.